Go back to your country. We don't
Don't
need
say
you
like
here.
good as pig, just
You know
just
what?
as pig.
They would either call me a terrorist, they would call me ignorant, they would...
East Indian.
Do you know that over 40% of Canadians now believe that immigration impacts their communities in a negative way? It's shocking. When you think of Canada, what comes to your mind? For most of us, it is a country known for its multiculturalism, inclusiveness, and a welcoming spirit. But beneath this surface, something unsettling is brewing. Today we are diving into this topic that often swept under the rug: racism in Canada, specifically the rising tide of anti-immigrants sentiments. In 2024, this issue is more pressing than ever. All of us, we have seen in the news about what's happening to immigrants coming from India, what's happening to immigrants coming from African countries, immigrants coming from Pakistan and other countries. With so much talk about Canada being the land of opportunity for new immigrants, it's disturbing how quickly these sentiments can change, especially when it comes to those who are new to our country. Have you ever wondered what's causing all this? How could a nation built by immigrants develop such negative views towards them? These are the questions we need to ask. And today we are going to shine a light on the darker side of Canada's immigration stories. It is time to confront this and understand what's really happening in our communities. So let's break it down. In recent years, anti-immigration sentiments in Canada has been on the rise, and it is becoming a serious concern. Reports shows that incidents of hate crime against immigrants have surged, with stats indicating a 30% increase in just last 1 year. These are not just numbers. These are real people's lives being affected. High-profile events like protests against immigration policies and the rise of far-right groups have made headlines. It's alarming to see how quickly attitudes can shift, especially in a country that prides itself on being multicultural and welcoming. But where is this coming from? More and more, we hear discussion about protecting Canadian values, xenophobia in the guise of patriotism. People are scared, and the fear is being exploited by certain groups to push a narrative that immigrants are a threat. This shift is not just about isolated incidents. It's a trend that has real consequences for our society. What does this mean for the future? If we do not start addressing these underlying issues, we risk allowing these sentiments to grow even stronger, further dividing communities and eroding the values that Canada holds dear. Let's dig deeper into why is this happening. Canada has been a land of immigrants, built on the contributions from people all over the world. But despite this history, there are underlying currents driving this negative sentiment. Economic factor plays a huge role. Many Canadians feel the pressure of rising cost of living and job competition. And when people are struggling to make ends meet, it's easier to look for someone to blame. Immigrants who are often seen as newcomers taking jobs become easy targets for this frustration. But it's not just about economics. Before we go any further, please like, subscribe, and share this video with as many people as you possibly can. Subscribing to my channel is not going to cost you anything, but it is going to help me big time. Now back to our topic. There's also a significant social component to this. Cultural differences can breed misunderstanding and distrust, especially when communities feel like they're losing their identity. This fear of unknown could lead to resentment, which is only amplified by misinformation and stereotypes. And let's not forget media's role into all this. Too often, media outlets sensationalize stories about immigrants, highlighting the few negative incidents over the many positive contributions. This skewed portrayal only fuels the fire, making it harder for people to see immigrants as their neighbors, friends, and fellow Canadians. What we see is a perfect storm of economic anxiety, cultural fear, and media influence coming together to create a climate where anti-immigration sentiments can thrive. It's a dangerous mix, and it's the one that requires careful considerations and actions. Now, let's bring this issue to a more personal level. I want to share a story that really struck me. Aisha, a young woman from Syria, moved to Canada in hopes of building a new life. She was excited, hopeful, and ready to embrace her new home. But instead of being welcomed, she faced harassment and discrimination that made her feel unwelcome in the very country she wanted to call home. Her experience is not unique. Stories like Aisha are happening all across Canada, and they highlight the real human cost of racism and anti-immigration sentiments. It's not just statistics. It's about lives being affected, dreams being crushed, and communities being torn apart. Imagine coming to a new country, full of hope and excitement, only to be met with hostility and prejudice. Unfortunately, that's the reality of many new immigrants in Canada today. It is heartbreaking to think about the emotional and psychological toll this takes on individuals who simply want to contribute to their new home. But why does this matter to you and me? Because when we allow these sentiments to fester, we undermine the very fabric of what makes Canada strong. Me, as a person of color, when I was new here, I faced very similar situations, that very similar to Aisha's example that I just gave. But I learned to overcome those and learn to handle those over the period of time. But for a newcomer in Canada, it is very challenging to cope with these obstacles and hurdles. Every story like Aisha is a reminder that we still have a long way to go in creating a society where everyone feels they belong. So what happens if we do not address this issue? If anti-immigration sentiments continues to grow, it could have serious long-term consequences for Canada. We risk becoming a society that is divided along cultural and racial lines, where fear and suspicion replace trust and cooperation. This not only hurts immigrants, but also weakens our country as a whole. Our economy relies on the skills and contributions of immigrants, and our social fabric is enriched by the diversity they bring. By turning against immigration, we risk losing out on the very things that have made Canada a great place to live. The erosion of trust between communities can lead to social instability. When people feel alienated and marginalized, they are less likely to engage positively with society. This can create a cycle of resentment and division that become increasingly difficult to break. So, where do we go from here? The first step is awareness, understanding that this issue exists and recognizing the impact it has on individuals and communities. But awareness alone is not enough. We need to take action as a nation. That means challenging stereotypes, standing up against racism when we see it, and supporting policies that promote inclusiveness and diversity. Now, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this issue? Have you experienced or witnessed any anti-immigrant sentiments? Drop your comment below. I read them all. If you found this video eye-opening, please give it a thumbs up and share it with anyone who needs to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe for more content on life in Canada and immigration to Canada. Together, let's keep this conversation going and work towards a more inclusive Canada. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video.